When a queen gives up her throne, she becomes a private person. She frees herself from all the myths and legends that burden majesty. She gradually passes into history. But a film star like Greta Garbo finds that her stardom will not let people forget her. Though Garbo still turns deaf ears to the millions of people who entreat her to return to the screen, she has more substance than a memory. Garbo herself is ageless. The great romantic films she made are rediscovered by each new generation, and her spell has lost none of its power. As Hollywood's greatest star, no one ever created such an impression. As a woman, no one ever tempted so many people to try to penetrate her mystery. What is the Garbo legend?
I don't think there's a chance of anybody starting from the beginning, as I did, and lots of us did, like Eleanor Powell, and she did all right, didn't she? As a dancer. I don't think it's possible because the studios aren't taking the time to train their people. If you remember, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer was called the Stable of the Stars, the Studio of the Stars. We had the opportunity to watch the greatest actors in the world, much older than I, like Louis Stone, Wally Berry, 3 Barrymores on the lot, Greta Garbo. My golly, imagine sneaking on their sets and watching. That was our training. We never went to acting school.
Yes, you were quite a Garbo fan, weren't you?
I still am. Everybody seems to see her on Fifth Avenue but me.
Oh, I was going to ask, have you seen her in New York? I know she lives here.
I know she does, but every one of my friends call and say, saw Garbo on Fifth Avenue today. I said, why didn't you call me and tell me what street, you know?
What was Garbo like behind the scenes? Was she as cold and dispassionate as she seemed to be in her films?
She was frightened. She was never cold. There was a funny story. Every morning I'd walk by her dressing room and say, good morning, Miss Garbo, through the window, which was curtained, but it was open and she could hear my voice. And I'd run to the set, good morning, Miss Garbo. For years, she never said, good morning, Miss Crawford, good morning, Joan, or good morning, anything. One day, I was late. We had a hairdressing problem, and I was late for the set, and I ran past her room, because I never like to be late for anything, and any appointment, and on the set particularly, with other actors waiting, the director ready, and the producer and everyone. And I rushed by without saying good morning, and she opened her door and stuck her head out, and she said, hello. She missed the one morning I hadn't said it.
Is that right?
I had a lovely encounter with her in Grand Hotel. You see, we worked in the same picture, but we never had any scenes together. And she always quit at 5, and I started work at 6 every night. We had to work around the clock because we had so many people in the cast in Grand Hotel that were working in other pictures that we had to set our schedule and arrange it so that the actors that worked during the day would not work at night with me so they could get to the next picture the next day. We did 2 and 3 pictures at a time in the early days. And she started coming up the steps, and I was ready to go down the stairs. And I said to Jerry Asher, one of our publicity men, she doesn't like to be talked to, and it's tiring at the end of the day. She quit early today. It's 5 minutes to 5. And I said, let's step back. And she came around the corner at the top of the steps, ready to go to her dressing room. And I started to sneak down, and she stepped back down. No, I stepped down 2 steps, and she said, hello. She said, how sorry and sad I am that we have no scenes together. In the same picture, dressing next door to each other all these years, and not one scene together. I shall miss that. Well, my knees got weak. She's so beautiful, you just couldn't stand it. My golly, and this face this close to me.
You constantly say how overawed you were when you met stars like Barrymore and Garbo.
Have you ever met her?
No.
Oh, you'd be breathless.
Really?
Oh, you couldn't stand it. She's so beautiful.
Yes.
She's so wonderful. And that's what was so great during the Metro days, because they had a mystery about everyone. There were no girls next door, you know, with the shiny faces. Everybody knows too much about stars nowadays.
I think she's still the most beautiful woman, one of the most beautiful women in the world. And how sad it is that she keeps saying she's too old, that nobody wants to see her, and she likes to be remembered as she was in those days, like Anna Christie. And would you like to know something? She's the only star, great star, that has made only 24 pictures.
That's very impressive. I hadn't thought about the small number of films that she has made. It's also interesting that the impression that she conveyed was, in a way, a limited one. I think if you look at it, there was a kind of Garbo style, a kind of Garbo attitude, and it was a tremendously durable and impressive one. It seemed to fit many different sorts of roles.
She was a great friend of Adrian's, the designer that was with Metro all the years I was there. Most of the years I was there. Irene was there too, and Helen Rose later. But Adrian had a great influence on Garbo. She had a divine sense of humor. Do you remember the first big thing about Garbo was Garbo Speaks? Well, she used to do the kind of silent close-ups, even in talking pictures. But when she really spoke up in a picture, the big ad campaign was Garbo Speaks. She went in for fittings with Adrian one day, and she started to giggle. And she'd just seen all the big 24 sheets around Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer and about the whole second lot, back lot, first lot on locations. And she said, "Leave the room." And Adrian left the room. He didn't know what she was going to do. She had a piece of chalk, and she wrote all across the mirror, "Garbo Speaks." And she was giggling like a child. But she had a divine sense of humor. And she was terribly frightened. I know that I saw her hiding behind sets when I was filming. She'd come and sneak on my sets like I would on hers. Hers were completely barred, mine weren't. And it was so fascinating that I went up to her one day, and she ran like a deer. So I called a director friend of mine, and I said, "You're directing her in a picture. She comes over and sneaks to look at me. She stops for tea every day on your set. Could she have tea on my set?" The man's name was George Cukor. He said, "Sure, I'll bring her over." And he did. And she had tea with me on the set. And I asked her, I said, "Look, I run movies every Saturday night and every Sunday night, 2 each night, to get caught up with films while I'm filming, because I can't go during the week." She said, "I would love to come one night." She came to my house. Across the street lived Barbara Stanwyck, and they were giving a party, and she saw all these cars, and she thought I was giving a big party, and there was only Adrian and Garbo and me the table was set for. She got frightened and ran away, and I went to the door, and I thought I heard footsteps, and there was a little note, "Sorry, it's too big a party for me, Gigi."
Marvelous.
And it was Barbara Stanwyck giving the party, not me.
Does she stay to herself now that she lives in New York?
Mm-hmm. She does a lot of walking, window shopping, lunches with very few people. She's very close to the Brian Aherns. And Van Johnson was at the Brian Aherns, I think it was Thanksgiving or Christmas this past year, and he said he was sitting there and they were waiting for the turkey dinner, and the doorbell rang, and it was Garbo. And he got up and he said, "Hi." And she said hi very warmly, and she hadn't seen him for a long time. But I think the Aherns are about the closest friends she has in the picture business.
Her range is vast. She has indeed the kind of face that a director gets in front of a camera once in a century. She doesn't need to change expression to show her emotions. She only changes the thought behind her eyes, and somehow she lets the camera photograph it. How does she do it? That's her secret. She is a woman blessed with the intuitive gift of sensing what life is all about and making us feel it through her art.